Show me the money.
Just looking good, but I think I'm taking too long.
Back to the spot for a Glock. I took a loss over frost, but still got a knock.
Money! Jerry, does that make you feel good just to say that?
All right, show me the money. NFL picks for week number 2 are here on the podcast. And join me today to make his return to the podcast. We talked some Hard Knocks off-season in July. Phil Lombardo is back with us. Phil, how are you?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Unfortunately, I feel like Hard Knocks in July probably make you feel better about your football team than what we watched on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sure, I've been on the pod a bunch of times now, so maybe some people might recall that I am a season ticket holder, and it always stings a lot more when you have you're anticipating the season coming. You finally get here, and then they put up a little bit of a stinker like they did on Sunday. It was pretty tough to watch.
It was very tough to watch here. Obviously, being in the building here and then there, like, what was the vibe like with the fans? I saw some of the broadcasts bouncing around. I felt like the fans were not happy from the get-go.
So you could tell that the leash was about as short as I've ever seen it in my 30 years of going to games at Giant Stadium or at MetLife. It was, people turned on Daniel Jones so fast. After that first interception, that for a touchdown, late in the third quarter, I think that's when you started. We were hearing chants of Tommy Cutlets in the middle of the game, earlier in the game, and that was a little seldom. And most people, other fans, were telling fans to shut up, and there was a little bit of back and forth going on. But once that interception happened to Van Ginkel, which inexcusable by any quarterback, that's when everybody just completely lost it. So I feel for Daniel Jones. There's a human behind, wearing that helmet and in the locker room. I don't doubt his work ethic, but it's gotten to the point where it's like it's put up or shut up time, and he's really not doing anything to win anybody over.
Yeah, for sure. It's never ideal when you hit week 2 when your quarterback is being questioned and we have the media going to the head coach saying, is there a quarterback change here? And obviously, week 1's too soon to pull the plug on Daniel Jones, but, do you feel the leash as a whole should be getting shorter?
The leash should be about as short as my pinky finger, Mike, especially because you're going into a game this week playing against arguably the worst pass defense in the NFL, even worse than the Giants. The Giants, I know they have some deficiency, in the secondary, but the Commanders last year were, I think, either 31 or 32 in pass defense, and they looked really vulnerable. Baker Mayfield tore them up all day last week. So, hey, DJ, I know you had a very bad performance in week 1, but here's a chance for you to slightly redeem yourself and maybe start to get a little momentum going. So I would say, from my perspective, if he puts up another performance this week or like he did last week, pull him either mid-game or, start Drew Lock in week 3 and let Daniel Jones go work on it in practice. Because at this point, we got to do something. Dable's also got to worry about his job, right? It's going to get to the point where his job could be on the line if the team isn't playing well anymore, or playing well at all. And, you can blame the players all you want, but as a coach, you got to make a decision at some point.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't help matters too. They committed to Jones and they watched Saquon Barkley score 3 touchdowns for the Eagles week 1. I'm sure that was not ideal either.
I mean, especially after Hard Knocks and everything that happened and all the controversy there. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, and I said it during the last time I was here, I agree wholeheartedly with letting Saquon go. Saquon would not have helped us very much last week. Sure, maybe the game was a little bit closer than the 28-6. There was a few plays that really changed the forecast of that game, regardless of the offense just looking absolutely inept. But it does not help the cause when your team has that bad of a performance. And there you go. You have your quote unquote best player from last year go to the division rival Eagles and have a day like he did.
Yeah, certainly not ideal. And you mentioned already that they have a trip to Washington week 2, take on the Commanders here in a game that they really have to win here. They've had good success against Washington in the past. Washington has Jaden Daniels, who had his ups and downs against Tampa week 1 here. What do you think the situation is of the Giants? They enter the game as underdogs, but like this is one you would think on paper, like of what they have coming up here, this is the one they kind of got to get. Otherwise, things could get very, very ugly.
Yeah, listen, like, you before the season, you look at these first two games and you're like, hey, the Giants are playing two guys in their weight class. These are two games that you need to absolutely at least get 1 out of 2. Okay. Let's chalk up the first week as either like first week jitters, still getting your chemistry, new O-line, whatever. Show me something, because this is a team that, has starting a rookie quarterback, right? In Jaden Daniels. They didn't really do, from what I understand, they didn't really unleash him last week. They were a lot of conservative throws. He was getting happy feet, running out of the pocket, doing a lot of that rookie stuff, right? So let's see with our pass rush, or what our pass rush should be. I know it didn't show us much last week. We're getting to the quarterback, but not really getting results from it. Let's put a little pressure on them. Let's try to switch up some coverages and see if we can make something happen. The Giants have historically had Washington's number, like you mentioned. So, and I'll keep saying it: put up or shut up time. This is really it for the G-men. Their season could be over before it started if they put up another stinker this week.
Yes, for sure here. So we'll see what happens with the Giants. You'll get to the pick, which is the reason why you're here this week. My buddy Martino Puccio was on the podcast, listened to his picks. He went 2-1 on the week. He had the Saints laying the 3.5. They blew the Panthers away. He had the Chargers laying 3.5. He took the physical nature of the Chargers. They won that game convincingly. His loss, he took you guys with getting the points. That one did not end very well.
Yeah, I did listen to the pod myself, and when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. Tough one when they lose by 22.
Yeah, it almost offsets the Saints winning by 37.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I went 2-0-1 on the week. I had the Bills. I locked in early 5.5. They win by 6 after falling down early. They covered that one. I had the Lions laying 3.5 against the Rams. They win in overtime, so they cover the number there. I took the Colts +2. Think they pulled the upset. Instead, I got a push out of it. So I'm 2-0-1 to start the year.
Lucky you're undefeated.
Yeah, I never gotten the week 1 push before. That's a new one.
Yeah, what was that? Who's the number 1 pick to have a tie in his first start? Was that Kyler Murray?
I think I
was looking at the stats, how like the last 20 quarterbacks, it was like 19-1 or something like that.
Yep. I think it was Kyler was the.
So yeah, you and Kyler Murray.
Yeah,
you and Kyler Murray. Look at you.
Yep, we have that in common here. We're going to now get to the picks for the week here. So Phil, as the guest, you can go first. Where are you going with pick number 1?
Yeah, so taking a look at this coming week's slate, it's hard to ignore what the 49ers were able to do against your Jets last week. The Jets come in with a highly touted defense and a lot of hype, and just that 49ers offense, without arguably their best player, looked absolutely unstoppable. Brock Purdy turned it up to an even newer, like a higher level than I thought he had in the tank. His arm looked stronger. He looked like he had complete command of that offense. So give me the 49ers in Minnesota. I'd like to see Minnesota do what they did to the Giants to San Francisco. I just don't see it. So -5.5, give me the Niners.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, this is something you feel like the Vikings, you're excited about them. You remember, hey, this is Sam Darnold. Hey, they play the Giants. Let's see what happens if they play a real team.
Absolutely.
All right, where are you going with pick 2?
Give me another team here where I thought they played pretty well, but they actually ended up on the wrong side of things, and just by maybe a big toe, Isaiah Likely's big toe to be exact. The Ravens are at home. They got something to prove. I just don't see a John Harbaugh team with this much talent, led by Lamar Jackson, with Derrick Henry and that talented of a roster, going 0-2. I know it's a big spread at 9.5, but give me the Ravens at home. I just think they have too much for the Raiders.
Yeah, to me, this feels like a no-win spot for the Raiders. They're going east. They're playing the 1 o'clock game. Got the Ravens off a loss with extra time, knowing they have to win this game here. This could get very ugly very quickly.
That's my whole thought process, and considering I have Lamar Jackson in fantasy, let's just double down.
Yeah, you might as well double down. We're going with your third pick of the week.
We're going to go down to the Sunday night game. We have Caleb Williams, his first road start, and I think they lucked out last week. I think he only had 93 yards passing, and the rest of his team picked him up, and they were able to come out with a W after going down 17-0. I think things are going to be a little bit different. I think the Texans are primed to be one of the NFL's best teams this year, And I think, with a rookie quarterback coming in, the Bears still having not a ton of continuity through that roster quite yet on offense. Roma Dunzi also might be out for this game, if I'm not mistaken. So give me the Texans minus 6.5 at home in front of just an absolute raucous crowd in Houston that really hasn't had a chance to get this hype heading into a season in a long time.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's actually my first pick as well. We're going to get a family playing the Texans here. I agree with everything you said here. And we watched the Bears last week. The Bears had no business winning that football game. Their defense and a block punt stole that game here. Caleb Williams not going to be that bad again, but I think it's a rough spot for them to get one here. I love the logic on that pick.
Yeah, and the thing is I actually like Will Levis. I think he did a lot of good things in that game, but he handed that game over. So, you kind of change that one play, and I think everything's different, and you might have the Bears on the wrong side of things too.
All right, so that's my first pick. I'm family play with you on that one. Pick 2, I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Bucks getting 7 in Detroit against the Lions here. And I talked about this preseason. I took Tampa in my overs on the over-under totals here. I feel like they're not getting enough credit for how good that roster is. We saw they dismantled the Commanders last week. 7 points a lot to lay on the road against the Lions team that went to overtime against the Rams. They have some issues on defense stopping these high-powered offenses here. We saw Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp dice them up all game long here. I think Tampa's going to be right in this football game. I may not win, but I'm getting a lot of points to 7. I think the Bucks pick 2.
Yeah, I really like how the Bucks were able to kind of reinvigorate Chris Godwin, putting him back in the slot last week. He looked like the player that we saw like year 2 and 3 of his career.
All right, that's pick number 2. And pick number 3, I'm going to take the Browns getting the 3 in Jacksonville against the Jaguars here. To me, this is a bet that the Browns are not as bad as we saw last week. I think they just ran into a buzzsaw with the Cowboys, who were firing on all cylinders. They get the Dak extension done here. I feel like this is an if not now, when for the Browns. I think this is a situation. I don't think the Jaguars are that good. I'm getting 3 points. I feel like they can play well enough defensively, sneak a win out of here, and I just win outright. So I'll bet the Browns here. I'll bet the defense to bounce back. So give me the 3 points in Cleveland.
And also, if not now, then when for Deshaun Watson? He's another quarterback that's going to be on the hot seat if he puts up another performance like he did in week 1.
Yeah, for me, it's just a matter of I feel like this team is too good to be this bad, and being road underdogs in Jacksonville, where there's not going to be like a massive fan presence in support of the Jags all the time. So I think that's a spot they can bounce back.
Totally agree.
All right, so to reset the picks of the week, Phil is gone with the 49ers laying 5.5 in Minnesota against the Vikings. The Ravens laying 9.5 at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Texans laying 6.5 on Sunday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. My picks: a family play with Phil on the Texans. We're going to go with the Bucks getting 7 in Detroit against the Lions, and the Browns getting 3 in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. Those are your picks for week number 2 on the podcast here. And as is tradition here, while I'm still alive in it, we're going to do the knockout board because I was smart enough not to pick the Bengals last week.
Yeah, I'm not in any survivor pools, but I was looking at the board and I was thinking if I was in one, they would have been one of my top picks. I also did like Seattle, who started off a little slow against Denver as well. And the Bills too. The Bills were another one, and I know they're historically are a slow starting team, especially with Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. But that was another one where they made you sweat a little bit too. And I feel like a lot of people probably picked the Bills. Yeah,
the Bills were my pick last week. I survived that one here. So I'm actually borrowing one of your picks in the knockout this week. Baltimore is my knockout pick to go for the Raiders. I see no way in hell they lose that football game.
It's just, you always, you look at teams that go 0-1, especially talented teams, and they feel the pressure of that 0-2 start. And you really, you normally do see them, bounce back in a big way.
Yeah. And I do not think there's any way Gardner Minshew is going into M&T Bank Stadium and beating that defense. I don't see that happening whatsoever.
No, I mean, honestly, the Raiders didn't look too bad in the beginning of that game, but then you started to see their deficiencies as the game wore on a little bit.
Yep, so that's the knockout pick for this week. If I'm still alive, we'll do this again next week with my guest, Mike Kelly, on the podcast, talking some Jets football next week. And if my Jets don't find a way to beat Tennessee this week, then we might have a different conversation.
Yeah, the thing is that, you got to be happy with how Aaron Rodgers looked because his arm just looked phenomenal. Some of those throws, you're like, is this guy 40 or is he, 24? And that's what really impressed me was that, I think it's just, even though they did lose, the 49ers are one of the best teams in the league. It's week 1. I think you got to be a little excited about how that how that offense looked.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the pod. I said I know my issues with the Jets right now, but I think most of them are fixable. And I feel like the step down competition here, going from San Francisco to the next couple of weeks, at Tennessee, New England, Denver, I feel like there's a good chance they're 3-1 by the time we hit October.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Tennessee's no slouch, so you can't overlook them, right? You know, if you're the Jets, you gotta take them seriously. But I mean, as long as everybody's healthy. I don't know what happened to Sauce. Is Sauce okay?
Sauce is fine. Sauce has trouble catching his breath, which is why he was on the sideline for a little bit.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I didn't know if he might have just had something that maybe he came back, but then as the adrenaline wore off, it would turn into an issue.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about the Jets. We'll talk next week with the Jets. Play Thursday night next week against the Patriots. Phil, thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, Mike. I love doing this with you. So I'm happy for you.